Hello and welcome to Mac Power Users. My name is Stephen Robles and joined by my friend and yours, David Sparks. How's it going, David?
It's going great, Stephen. You getting used to saying that? Welcome to Mac Power Users.
I know. I think that was maybe the first time I did the intro. So yeah, I was
Yeah,
making sure I got it right.
yeah.
Sure I got it right.
Again, so much positive feedback. In fact,
Yes.
we kind of blew up a little bit on social media in our little nerd circle this week, didn't we?
We did. So on last week's episode, we were talking about our menu bar apps and backups came into play. And I shared a little clip where you sounded like a mob boss, and you said you have a beautiful family. It'd be a shame if something happened to them. And you meant a shame if something happened to their photos. But I shared this clip everywhere. And lots of people were like, Steven, you have to back up your stuff. And so I'm going to figure it out. But I did want to mention Cliff538 on Mastodon actually linked this app called Parachute Backup.
Yeah.
Which is a Mac app and also on iOS, but it will back up your entire iCloud drive contents to a NAS or something else. And so I think I might try that first. I don't know if that meets your if that meets your requirements.
That's better than nothing. It's funny because I'm getting used to the fact that we look into a camera and we do the show now. And
right.
And when I watched that clip, you could just see my face at the moment that you said you had no backup. And it was very judgy. And,
Well, everybody understood, and I really should back up my stuff. But
yeah, you should. You really should.
Yeah. But speaking of video, too, we wanted to mention, so we had lots of requests saying they like seeing David's reactions to my backup failures and everything else. And so we want to give the video to more Power Users members who support the show. And so what we'll do going forward is we'll make a version that's private, and if you're a More Power Users member, you'll find a link in the show notes to the More Power Users episodes to watch everything ad-free, plus the More Power Users segment on video if you would like to do that. So that'll be available.
Yeah, that's excellent. Just on the question of NAS, I just have to make a confession right now because you've raised the topic. This week, I accepted delivery of a Unify UNAS 2, which is the Unify, cloud. Well, not really cloud. It's the local hard drive on your network thing. I have not had a network attached storage for a long time. Because hard drives are good enough now. You're good, but I've got 7 terabytes of data. I make videos like every day, so I decided I wanted to have like a local backup that I can control. And the other nice thing about that is because Unify is so easy to use when you're on the road, I can get access to all that data. So I got that plugged in. It's going to take a week to get all my 7 terabytes over there, but I check every morning. My carbon copy cloner is very happily sending it over to me. But I'll report on that in the future. But I did buy a piece of gear this week, Stephen.
Okay, very fun. I actually have 2 NASs. Both of them could be used for backup, and I just use neither. So I'm going to set it up.
Oh, you're kidding me.
I could be running Time Machine right now. I think
you're punking me at this point. You have 2 NASs, and you have it.
I do have 2 NAS. I have a Synology and a Ugreen, and I use it for video stuff. I use it for Plex. And one has a 10 gigabit Ethernet connection, so it's actually pretty fast transfer speeds. So would be perfect for a backup.
Okay, well, there you go.
I'm trying to get you going now before we start. But I
have no words. I have no words.
You had some other announcements too. I want to say about the
we do. We have several announcements this week for the Mac Power Users. One is we have a newsletter. You may not know that, but there's a link at the website, and it goes out in the show notes every week. And there's a bunch of members that are getting the newsletter. The advantage you get to that is every week it gives you a little article from me or a video or an article from Steven, something we've done this week. So you get to see some of the stuff we're doing outside of Mac Power Users. But it also has all the notes for the week and all the links. So if you listen to the show and you like to go to your inbox and just have all the links there for you, you get them. And so we've been doing that through a different vendor for a long time. For reasons, it was getting untenable, and we have now moved it over to Kit, which is the company I use for the Mac Sparky newsletter. I really like Kit. If you're looking at a newsletter company, I really like using them. They're not paying me to say that. I pay them actually quite a bit of money every year, but I like the way they take care of small creators like me. One of the ways they did that is they moved all the data into Kit, so now those people that are already subscribed should get the new newsletter without any problem. With an asterisk. I'm going to come back to that. But if you want to sign up for it, please do. We would love for you to do so. And then you'll get a nice little email from Stephen and I every Sunday as the show goes public with all the details of the show's outline and the show notes for that week. And we hope you enjoy that. Now, there's a few of you that for legal reasons we weren't allowed to pull over. For one reason, I don't really understand how it all works, but they're very particular about these rules about putting people on mailing lists, and I don't want to break any rules. So we just decided for the people that were questionable whether we could move them or not, we just won't move them. And that was, I think, about 20% of the entire list. So you may not get it even though you've been subscribed this week. And if that's you, please just go sign up again and keep Sparky out of jail. So that's the goal. So go to the link. Please sign up, everybody. We'd love you to get those notes every week.
And especially if you listen in an app like Apple Podcasts, a lot of times show notes get truncated. And last week we had 50 links because I tried to link every app that we talked about, and you might not have got them all. So it's a nice way to see all that in one place.
Yeah. Also announcing today on More Power Users, we're going to be talking about the M5 question. There's rumors now that an M5 Studio may come out. And I am having problems. I'm thinking about it when I lay in bed at night, and Steven's going to walk me through this. I don't know if he's going to push me over the edge or pull me back, but we're going to find out in More Power Users today.
We will find out. But you definitely pushed me to buy a bunch of apps last week on the menu bar. So, we'll see. I might get some revenge this week.
Man, an M5 Studio is not the same as a few apps. Come on.
It's a lot of menu bar apps worth of apps. For sure. Oh, just one other thing I'll mention, too. When it comes to our iPhone home screens this week, which is what we're talking about, I will have image links in the show notes. Last week I mentioned chapter art, and menu bars don't work great in square chapter art, as you can imagine. Yeah, so those were linked in the show notes, and so I'll be more specific. But this week, in addition to all the other apps and links, will be there the image links to our home screens and different focus modes, and there's a lot to see this week. So that's all in the show notes, and you can get it in the newsletter as well.
Yeah, so we got thinking, what's another way to get to know Steven? Let's dissect his iPhone, talk about his iPhone philosophy, what apps he's using. I've got a few updates too. I know a lot of the listeners know my setup or they've heard me talk about it before, so you can be the focus today, Steven, but I'll weigh in with some things I'm doing as well. But we thought we would take on mobile today, so let's start with philosophy. Because yes, you can have an iPhone philosophy. How do you look at your iPhone, Steven?
Yeah, so the iPhone, it's an internet communicator, it's a phone, and it's a widescreen video iPod. That's I'm just kidding.
Right back to the original, right there.
That's it. The iPhone has always been where I do most of my communication, for better or for worse. I mean, I still check my mail, I still do Slack and all of that, but especially in the last few years, doing more video content, now being on the floor at CES this past January, it has become also a short-form video device. It's not what I record long form or podcasts on, but it's definitely a video device, and I use apps, which we'll see on my home screen, for editing video on it. And it's also, I end up watching a video on lunch, just in between what I'm working. And so it does all the things, and it's a key role. And there's always the question that, Gruber will ask people, if you could only keep the Mac or the iPhone, which would you keep? I'm curious your answer to that, David.
Oh, that would absolutely be the Mac. I mean, because I do all my work at this thing every day.
And it is still the case for me that if I had to choose, I would choose the Mac also, because Final Cut and the video production and live streaming that I do, you still can't do that from the phone. I do a lot on the phone, but the Mac is still the king.
Yeah, I kind of feel the same way. I think of the iPhone very much as a utility player that can get me out in a jam, take care of something, and it's remarkable the number of things I can do with it. But it doesn't equal the Mac for me. I mean, I don't have my keyboard maestro and some other stuff I do to make my Mac really dance for me. For the real heavy lift, I need it. But I find I use that phone all the time. And I'm not one of those people who is a phone-only guy. Like, we have people in the audience, like salespeople on the road a lot, and they get almost all their work done on a phone. That's not me. But I do think that I can make it dance to about when he...
Yeah, I use a lot of shortcuts that do allow me to get a lot of work done. And there'll be times if I have to do a podcast and all I have is my phone, like I can make it work and even edit the podcast on my phone using the app called Ferrite. So in a pinch, it could be a workhorse. And when it comes to the camera and video, obviously it is one of the best. I tell people if you're getting into video content or you want to record a video podcast, the iPhone is the best camera you're going to get until you're ready to invest in like a Sony mirrorless. Any webcam, the iPhone beats it.
Yeah, and both of us have fancy cameras, but I believe both of us use the iPhone camera for part of the content we create.
Yeah, absolutely. And just the ease of being able to share a video by recording it on the same device, it is, it's super easy.
Okay, so Stephen, you go on vacation with your family, and
I do.
You're going to take pictures that may or may not be eventually backed up. Do you bring your fancy Sony camera, or do you bring your iPhone? What camera do you bring on vacation?
I just bring my iPhone.
Yeah,
I just bring
me
my
too.
iPhone. And now even at the tech events, I don't bring my Sony cameras. I'll bring my DJI Osmo and my iPhone. And even when I had both at CES this year, I found myself just recording faster with the iPhone because I wanted to record some vertical and some landscape.
Yeah.
And I would just be able to do it quickly with the iPhone, and then the footage is on the device. I don't have to transfer anything. So my use case over time has changed where I will really lean on the phone, especially on the go and when traveling. And it's powerful. It's powerful.
Yeah. It feels like Apple came for the point and shoot crowd a long time ago, but now it feels to me like they're coming for the small form factor video devices, like the pockets and things like that. As they keep adding additional features, the iPhone is so good for camera. Yeah, I do think that you should think about your phone in terms of what's the job to be done, as Clayton Christensen would say. What is the job to be done by your phone, and then you can optimize for that.
And that's one of the reasons I went Pro again, even though the Air was tempting, and I actually have an iPhone Air just to kind of play around with as a beta device. I had to get the cameras, all the cameras. And my wife plays in an orchestra, like we talked about a couple episodes ago, and using that 4X camera lens, the telephoto, in a dim concert hall, it's incredible, the video and photos you get from that. My kids have dance recitals in those kinds of theaters, and so you can't beat it. It's great.
So you're the second co-host of Mac Power Users to also have an iPhone Air. I mean, when do you use it?
Oh, never. Just to run the betas.
Okay.
just to hold it every once in a while to see how it is. I did a review video on it, and the camera's very good, but I miss the telephoto and even the ultra wide sometimes, especially if I'm trying to get close to something. And I just like having the first of a device of Apple's. So I still have my original Apple Watch. I have to say I have the Vision Pro. I have the original iPad. I never got the original iPhone. And so I felt like with the iPhone Air, I just want to have it as like a collector type thing.
Yeah.
So I got it.
I only have eyes for orange. I love this orange iPhone. I usually get a new one every year, and I was telling Daisy, my wife, that maybe this year I will not get a new one because I love the orange color so much. And she just laughed at me and walked out of the room.
I didn't realize that the Mac Power Users color, you actually have the Mac Power Users iPhone color.
Yeah,
Finally.
Steve and I both liked orange, so we're like, all right, let's switch to the color orange. But yeah, I always wanted like one of these, and this is my favorite orange is what they call safety orange,
Yes,
and this is right. This is right there. They didn't cheap out on it. They went full orange. But yeah, this is a good question because as we head into this year, there's a much rumored iPhone Fold coming. I think it's probably coming based on the rumors, and I think a lot of listeners are going to be questioning, like, do you want a small and light, iPhone Air? Do you want the Pro with the best cameras? Do you want the Mini the Fold that opens up to a bigger screen for like the salespeople that are on the road using it as a computer? It's really going to be an interesting decision matrix later this year. So give some thought to the philosophy. All right, Stephen, I think we got to start talking about home screens. What's on your home screen?
This is a big question because I have multiple, which we're going to get into, but I'll share here and I'll link the image in the show notes, of course. But this is my default home screen. So during the day, weekdays, I don't have a focus mode enabled. I just run it by default. And what you're seeing here is my lock, home, today, and we'll get into control center later. But this is my home screen. I use a kind of a gradient wallpaper, and I like something that's not super distracting, so I don't use like pictures as the wallpaper, even though you can do the blurred background. And so it's just kind of gradient style wallpaper. I usually get it from Basic Apple Guy. I'll swap this out every couple months. And I guess it's utilitarian, but on my main home screen, I have a widget stack at the top that goes across the 4 icon width. And then I have, what is that, 12 icons. I have Maps, Wallet, Photos, Instagram, Gemini, Home, Things, Reminders, YouTube, the Edits app, which is Instagram's like video editor,
Yeah.
Bear, YouTube Studio, and then another widget stack, which we can get into. And then in my dock, Safari, Threads, Messages, and a food tracking app I've been using for the last 6 months, which is incredible, which is Food Noms.
I'm a fan of it as well.
Love Food Noms. And so
Yeah.
I use the small icons, and it still has the name underneath. And I'm curious because you said your home screens as well. I know you have a special method for the dealing with that big space above the dock. But any questions about my main home screen here?
Yeah, I mean, it's always interesting to me. You have not gone like full widget. Some people do that, like almost no applications. You've got a medium and a small size widget on your home screen, and otherwise you've got apps there. And it kind of makes sense with what I know about you. Like you've got a lot of shortcuts coverage. Well, actually, kind of on the next page, we'll get to that. But you do a lot with HomeKit. You've got HomeKit there. Is Gemini your primary like AI helper?
Yeah, this was Perplexity for a while. And then in that widget stack, I actually have the ChatGPT widget that lets you jump to either the camera, voice, or text. But as far as an icon, I've been using Gemini for the last 2 months as my default general search, general query. I want to ask it something. I've been using Gemini for it, and I've been mostly happy with it. I thought about switching it out for Claude, but I've not used Claude as like a searching type tool just yet. So
yeah, and I think frankly Gemini is probably better for that because it's from Google and they have all the ones and zeros when it comes to searching.
Yeah,
you've got your wallet on your home screen. Do you hit it often?
Well, I use my Apple Card as kind of my default payment thing.
Yeah.
And so I do jump in there, semi-often, and I get a lot of notifications when there's transactions and recurring things, and so I do check it. I don't know if I need to have it on there, but I don't know what else I would put on there. So it's
See, I put the wallet in Control Center, but I'm often in it. I could see the case for putting it on your home screen. I've been doing an experiment lately. I've been leaving my wallet at home because in California we've got the digital driver's license now.
I saw your email about that, and I was curious.
Yeah, my wife thinks I'm going to get arrested or something, but we'll see how it goes.
You can't speed.
Although it is weird when you go to a restaurant and like they bring you the bill, I'm like, well, do you guys take Apple Pay? Because usually I have her with me just in case so she can pay. But
more and more restaurants have the tap to pay thing they like bring to the table. So I feel like you're safer.
Yeah. That's the way. That's the
way. Now, I only have one home screen, and this is a method that I've used for years where I don't have a second page of apps and folders. I don't do that. It's main home screen. I swipe to the right, and it's the app library. And then you swipe the other way, and it's the Today view. And I believe you have it the same way?
Yeah. I feel like the app library is really good, and it allows you to not have to have 5 screens of apps that you scroll through. And the other thing is like my philosophy. So my home screen is similar to yours in some ways. It's more boring though. Yours is more colorful. But I take all the fun out of my iPhone.
Walk me through this. So this is your home screen, very gray.
Yeah, I took all color out of my iPhone about like early in the beta this year, just for giggles, because they made the icons can be more clear now. And I just thought, what if the phone was less sexy, and more boring? And I kind of like it that way. And everybody I know doesn't like it. They tell me that they need the colors to find the widgets and all that. But it doesn't really seem to be a problem for me. And I really like the idea because generally my working space on my Mac is also a gray background as well. I feel like the excitement is in the windows. It doesn't need to be in the wallpaper. So I did that. And for years I had colored themes for each focus mode. So I could look at it, and if it was blue, it was Mac Sparky, or if it was orange, it was personal. But I just felt like I wanted to back away from that a bit. So the overall philosophy of my phone is it's a contextual device, not an app device. So I like to launch everything as context. So I've got this gray screen. The focus mode indicator is based on the little quote and the icon at the bottom. And we talked about earlier how I like to have the big apps without the names on them, but it leaves a bunch of space on the bottom. So what I did was There's a search bar there by default, but if you go into the settings, you can turn that off because I never used it. If I want to search, I just pull down. So I put a little funny saying there or appropriate saying. The screenshot I'm sharing is for my personal focus mode, and it's something from the old NASA engineers. I had the saying when they were building the spaceships that was, "It will not fail because of me," and that always inspires me when I hear it. Like I want to carry that into my daily life with my family, with my kids, whatever it is I'm working in a personal mode. It will not fail because of me. So I put that there. Put a little icon of the hand plane because it's personal. And then off to the races I go. And it fills that space that gets left open by having the big icons.
I like the quote there. And it's a wonderful quote. Are you always in a focus mode?
Pretty much, yeah. I do have like a non-focus mode that sometimes I fall into, but I try to intentionally set it as I go throughout the day. Like I took this screenshot in the evening, so that's why it's the personal one right now. It will be reflecting the Mac Sparking. Actually, it's in podcast mode now. But I just kind of like running the focus modes because when I finish the day at work, I change it to the personal mode, and it like kind of throws a bit in my brain as well. That like, okay, I don't need to be thinking about that now. I'm in personal mode. You know, there's something to that.
Well, I got some focus modes. We'll talk more about that in a minute. But I do have some things to say about your home screen here, David.
Yeah. It has evolved. And like we just did a deep dive on it in the Max Sparky Labs, and some of the members gave me some tips that actually turned into action for me.
Now, I use the Fantastical widget in one of my stacks, and you have it here on your home screen, just static. Yeah. It seems like neither of those are stacks, right? Those
yeah, they're both widgets. Static, yeah.
My question is, you have the Fantastical widget there and another widget above it that tells you the date and time.
Yeah.
And also the time is in the top left corner.
Yeah, I know.
You just really want to know the time and date?
Honestly, I really struggle to find useful widgets for my home screen. I feel like, the Today view, when we get to that, I really load that up with widgets, and it's kind of my information central. If I want to know the weather, I just swipe to the right. It's okay. But I want to have a glanceable information there. And honestly, I could be convinced to take both of these widgets off.
Well, I'll tell you about some of the widgets I use in a minute, too. But also you have Safari, Claude, and Obsidian on the home screen. And then a folder, which is a cardinal sin for me. I can't have a folder on my home screen.
Yeah, that is a new addition, but it is, I think, the right move for me. Because I was really terrible about responding to people like you in my life. Because I hate the notifications. And I've got to explain the dock real quick, and I can come back to that.
Okay,
folder.
Please, yeah.
So the dock to me, and you'll appreciate this as a shortcut guy. These are the only things I really need on my phone. I could probably take everything off and just have those three things. Maybe that's an experiment. Maybe I should just take everything off the home screen and put a picture of my wife or my dog there. But those are contextual launchers for me. There's a Bolt, which is Max Sparky. There's a little compass, which is personal, and then there's a little book, which is consumption. And each one is a choose from menu shortcut. And anytime I think of something I want to do on my phone, I write it into that shortcut. Like, I'm experimenting with Claude Cowork like everybody, and one of my tricks is I've taught it to read my drafts folders. Anything in drafts that has Cowork as a tag, it reads and processes for me every time I open it up. So I'm not going to open drafts and tag something Cowork and write into it. Instead, I'm just going to make a shortcut that does everything for me except the dictation part. That is under one of those buttons.
Okay.
If I want to add a new task, I push the Mac Sparky button, and like I have one to add a new task for Mac Power users. We have a list that we share of show ideas. I've got one that opens up a shortcut that appends to that note with just one step. So what I like to do with my phone is not treat it as a thing where I go and start goofing off, jumping through apps. I come to it with a specific purpose. I trigger the appropriate shortcut, and it's done. And they're all under these three buttons. So that's really my whole phone system, to be honest.
Okay. And then in that folder are it looks like communication apps.
Exactly. So the problem was I was putting those under those buttons, under the shortcuts, but then the prior Stephen would message me and I wouldn't see it because there's no notification badge, you know.
Right.
So all the and I'm also super stingy about badges. I don't like hardly anything badge me, but I let all the communication apps badge me. You know, Notion, you know,
Slack.
all the stuff we deal with, you know, between each other and messages and some of the family stuff too. So those all fall in that folder. I let them, you know, reign free with badges. And if that folder has a badge on it, that means I should probably go in there and figure out what's going on.
You don't
But
have
like
another home
you,
screen,
Stephen,
right?
I gotta say, I hate it. I hate that there's a folder on my.
Like if it was me, I would probably make a shortcut choose from menu just so I could change the icon so I could have like a nice icon rather than the folder.
But then you lose the badge,
You do lose the badge.
and
Yes,
I
defeats
need the
purpose.
badge. I've learned to understand that this is a constraint I need because I ideally had them all under those shortcuts, and I would just go check messages. Like, okay, when I start the day, check messages. When I end the day, check messages. Well, you know, if I miss that one day and our editor needs something and I don't see that, then I'm a flake, and I don't want to be a flake.
I gotcha. And then this is your only home screen of apps, right? To the right
Yeah.
of this is just the app library.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's if people don't do that, like if you have multiple home screens, I would encourage you to try it because the app library will actually start learning your habits, and there are certain apps like the Mail app. I don't have it on a home screen. I don't have it in the Today view, but anytime I actually want to open Mail, I swipe over to the app library, and my app library has learned to just put Mail there where I can tap it. And even depending on the time of day, you know, there's a couple boxes like the suggested box in the app library where it will start moving apps there that your iPhone recognizes you use certain times or a certain, you know, frequency. And so if you actually just start using the app library almost like a quasi app launcher, it begins to learn your habits. And there is a widget called Siri Suggestions where it will swap out apps. And some people put that on their home screen. But that I can't do. I can't have different icons on my home screen every time I look at it. That's too far.
Well, we talked about that, and so we did this labs being up on it, and some of the people in labs are very much power users, and several of them really sung the praises of that Siri suggestion widget because, and they all said you got to give it like a week. But after that, it just knows. And every time, like I'm watching a movie and I look down and it's got the, you know, movie reference app sitting there. Or if I'm waking up, it's got the weigh-in app sitting there. They say it's shockingly good if you put it on for like a week. So I put it on for like a day and a half and I realized I cannot handle having 8 random apps every time I look at my phone, you know?
That's the thing.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
now
It's
talking
just
about
me, though. Just me.
well, no. With widgets, I do want to mention I'm going to show these home screens later too when we talk about different focus modes. But the top widget stack on my home screen is the same stack across all my focus modes. And so in addition to the weather in that stack, I also have my Fantastical widget, but then I also have an app called Showcase, which is a nice movie and TV tracker. And I use it as like movies that I'm looking forward to in the theater. It just has a nice little image with the movie title and how many days till that movie releases. So that's just in that widget stack. As I'm flipping through, I'll see that. So I like having that there. And then in this far right image, you'll see I have 4 family members. And that is the contacts widget, which we talked about, I think, last week, where if they're in your Find My network, it will actually show a label underneath each person of where they are. So you see like my wife is home, one son is home, but my oldest son is driving because he has his driver's license and he's driving around.
Yeah.
And what's cool is that contacts widget will actually update if someone's in a focus mode, if someone's driving, and you can see on my son's icon there's actually a tiny little car. So I know that he's driving. It says he's on I-75 South, and then I can see my mom is somewhere else. And so if you just want that at a glance, what's everybody doing, where's everybody at, I keep that contacts widget lower in the stack, but, flip down to it just to get at a glance, see what everybody's doing. So some widget ideas for you.
Yeah, you told me about that, but now I see it, I get it. And so what I've done is on my today view, I've got a widget stack of Find My. You don't see it in the screenshot because it's a little bit below, but I
Okay.
think I'm going to set it up the way you did. I prefer that. I just need to know where they are, you know.
Yeah.
And
Now,
I'm presuming if you click on them or tap on them, you can get to them and Find My as well.
exactly. You can open it. It opens up in the Find My app.
Yeah,
Now, moving on to the Today view. I have questions here, David, because you sent both of you put these in the Notion, and I was like,
yeah,
wait, which is the home screen and which is the Today view?
yeah. I could see you being
because
confused by that. Yeah,
because you have two long widgets at the top of your home screen, and then you have three long widgets in your Today view.
yeah.
And I know you were wondering what you should put on your home screen. I'm just going to throw a suggestion out there. You should do what I do, which is take that weather and the Fantastical widgets, make them a stack, and put it on the home screen.
But then you gotta like flip through it. Like,
Yeah, you got to flip your thumb.
yeah,
Just
I
flick
don't
your
know.
thumb.
There's part of I've just got used to the idea that I swipe over and all the information is there. But
But you have 13 apps in your menu bar telling you your next event.
yeah, I do. I do.
And that's why I keep the my Fantastical widget is underneath the weather on my main home screen because I'll flip to it, but often I mean I get notifications when there's an event that I actually need to like pay attention to or go to. Plus I have the Fantastical widget in my menu bar, which to your credit, I did turn on the up like the next event in the menu bar, and I do like that
Yeah,
because it tells you how many minutes till the next event, and if it's like a
exactly.
live stream or something, that's nice on the Mac. But I'm saying just I think you should make a stack and put some of these on your home.
Yeah, I'm going to try because a point that comes out of this is you've got to scroll mine to get all the Today View stuff. So if I can move some of it over to the main screen, then I don't have to do that anymore. So
And that's what
that-
I find the Today View, once you get past having to scroll to Today View, those widgets get much less useful and much
Yeah.
less
Yeah.
use. And so in my Today View, I have 4 shortcuts widgets,
yeah,
and these all run different shortcuts. And then peeking out at the very bottom, I have the Food Noms widget, which you can interact with and actually log foods right from the widget. And it will intelligently suggest some things, which is pretty cool. And then,
It-
yeah.
Yeah, let's just take a minute to call out food noms because I have, I'm really working on weight loss these days. So I'm really trying to be careful about what I eat. And there are a bunch of these apps out there, and some of them just got, I don't know, for lack of a better word, enterprise. They just felt like it turned into a whole thing. And Food Noms is like a low light kind of app that's not too heavy, but it also does everything you need. You point it at the label of a new food and it gets the data. They've got a shared database if you subscribe, and most anything you eat is already in there. And it makes tracking your food so easy. If you are thinking about this, I would not look any further than Food Noms.
And I will say I'm waiting to make this video so the title can be I lost 100 pounds with this iPhone app. But I've lost 70 pounds so far with Food Noms. And I have not really changed very much my activity. It's really just tracking and Food Noms. I tried my Fitness Pal, I tried Lose It, and they're all good apps in different ways.
Yeah.
But Food Noms was the first one that stuck, that worked super well. I can share it. So when my wife makes a dinner and, it's hard to sometimes track that kind of stuff, she actually does the work because she started tracking too. If she'll put all the ingredients in there, create a serving size, and then
Yeah.
she can share that to my Food Noms and I can log it and it's accurate. And so I absolutely love that app.
Yeah, me too. Well, we're both on a journey, and Food Noms is right there for us.
It is. And so I want to find out what else is in your Today View, but real quickly, the last two of mine, I have Parcel. Since you mentioned Parcel on the last episode, I installed it everywhere, and I started using it again.
What do you
that's
think?
super fun. Oh, it's great. It works with everything. Syncs with my Amazon account. I have it now in my Mac menu bar, which is a change from last week. So its Parcel's been great. And I have the battery widget on my iPhone as well. And underneath that, I have the Monarch Money widget, which is a sponsor on my YouTube channel, but I genuinely like it. And the transactions widget is nice because I can see recent transactions across all my accounts in a widget. And so it's helpful.
Yeah, not shown. So in my Today View, scene is at the top is the calendar. Below that's the weather. And then I've got my car has an app. And this is kind of a funny story. I had it on my home screen. And then one day I was goofing off in the house, not paying attention. My daughter came and said, "Hey, Dad, the hood my car is electric, so the hood, what do they call it, frunk? He said,
Yeah,
your
the frunk.
frunk's open. I'm like, what? Why is my frunk open? And I looked down and my finger must have tapped the widget on my home screen. And so I'm like, okay, so that does not go on my home screen anymore. That goes on the Today View. And
Yes.
so that one got over there. And also I've got food noms. I've got...
Is that Endel? Do you use Endel? It says thunderstorm with a little...
no, that's dark noise.
Dark noise.
yeah.
That's what it is.
Among my many ailments, Stephen, I have tinnitus, so I like to have noise in the background. That's probably my most used app. I play that thunderstorm constantly. I've got batteries there, and then below that I've got the food noms and the family location stuff. But you've really got me thinking, man. I may try and move some of this stuff over to the home screen because, like, I'm either like going to put nothing on my home screen or I'm going to refigure out this whole system. I feel like my home screen is always in flux. I can never find like the happy place for my home screen.
Well, and that's I've not struggled, but I haven't changed mine in a number of years because this has worked for me. I've swapped individual apps here and there. Like I had the phone app in my dock for years. I don't know why I never used it, and so I finally redid it and put it food noms and the other apps there. So, but the widget stacks, I would encourage you to try it, and even like for the podcast stuff, I'll use the podcast widget, and that's in my smaller widget stack. I have the Apple Podcast widget. I have my EV car app. I have the ChatGPT widget and also AnyList, which is a great grocery app. And I use that for groceries. My wife and I share that account so she can add stuff to the list and I go get it. But we also use AnyList for meal planning. And so if I ever want to see like what's for dinner, I actually have that in that widget stack. And I can swipe up and see what she's planning for dinner.
Yeah, so many of the productivity apps for me, though, always go into the context shortcuts. Right. I just don't want to be fiddling. If I go into my task manager, I want to go to a specific list. I don't want to get lost in the weeds of it. Same thing with mail. I've got it rigged to go to specific folders in mail if I want to check some element of mail. I don't want to just go to my inbox. So that actually allows me to take a lot of stuff off the home screen. But I think my widget situation definitely needs help.
Well, I will say you're big with the quote and arranging your home screen around that with the no titles on the icons. It's interesting to me. And we also had someone in our forums, Brian, changed his home screen after hearing your strategy. And so he now has this, he did the big icon so you don't see the names underneath, but he arranged it in such a way where it's kind of like symmetrical. Yeah. And so there's like a space above his icons and under two widgets. And then I thought that was pretty cool. And your quote at the bottom, I like that. And so I might, I might think about that. Or so next, let's talk about different home screens per focus. And I do have various wallpapers, lock screens, and home screens for each. And so I will say when it comes to wallpaper, what you're seeing now and what I'll link below, this is my evening and my weekend focus mode. And I do have different wallpapers for each. Both of them are space related because I do enjoy some space stuff. And so my evening one is kind of an evening scene with a starry night sky. And then my weekend wallpaper is the Pillars of Creation, which is the term for this structure out in space. And I think this was an image by the James Webb Telescope. And so that's actually NASA's picture. And so I enjoy those as my wallpapers. And then my home screen is actually the same between my evening and weekend focus mode. It's the same widget stacks, the same apps. It's just the wallpaper that changes. And I should mention, and I'm curious, well, yours, I don't know if yours is gray all the time, but I change day mode to night mode automatically. I never do the night, whatever that yellowing of the screen is. I don't do that. And you stay light mode all the time, you said, right?
Yeah, largely. I mean, if I wake up at night and I decide to open a screen, I'll put it in dark mode so my wife, so it's darker for the room. But in general, I'm in light mode always.
And do you use that night shift? Night shift is like the yellowing of the screen.
Yeah, I only use it. I've got a little iPad. I'm really into not looking at screens at night, so it's very rare that I do. But I've got a iPad mini, an aging iPad mini that I keep in my bedside table. And sometimes I want to read in bed. I don't have a physical book. I'll read that. And I've got that thing tuned all the way up to, to turn out all the blue light if possible and give myself the best chance of going to sleep.
Okay. So that's night shift is that feature.
Yeah.
And one other widget I'll mention now, these are on my weekend and evening focus mode, is the Widgetsmith photo widget. And what I'll do is I'll take a recent photo of my family and just stick that as a widget. That's not a stack. That's just there all the time. And I like that with the built-in Photos widget, you have to choose an album for it. You can't select just an individual photo to show in the built-in Photos widget. And you could create an album with a single photo, but I'm like, Widgetsmith, it's way better. And you can have multiple photos that you choose from. And so I do that. And in that other widget stack, and just real quick, the apps I have on here are Photos, Instagram, Things, Wallet, YouTube, Maps, Gemini, Bear, then the same dock, of course. And then in that smaller widget stack, I have Apple Podcasts and then the Fantastical month view. So if, usually in the evenings and weekends is when you're talking to your family and you talk about what's going on that date. And so I'll flip that widget up. I see the whole month at a glance. And then you can tap it and it will jump into Fantastical and start looking at that. So those are my focus modes.
Yeah, and what people don't realize about that, Fantastical is a medium-sized one where it puts the calendar on the left and the events on the right.
Right. And that's
that is a live widget if you're not aware. So when you're using it,
you can tap the little arrows left and right to go through months.
Or you can tap on an individual day. You're like, what am I doing on Tuesday? If you tap on it, the list will update for Tuesday. I really like that feature.
Yeah, it's an amazing widget. And I think all their widgets are interactive in some way. The month-only view, I think it's so small. I'm not sure if there's even tap targets there. But
and they've got a lot better over the years. Apple was cheating for the longest time, where because of the number of calls they would let a third-party app make, apps like Fantastical would always be a little bit out of date. Like if you updated your calendar, it wouldn't match as fast as the calendar app would. But I think they've made it so that's updated more often or whatever, because it seems like it's more up to date than it used to be.
It's pretty quick for sure. And so those are my focus mode home screens. And then the only lock screen difference, I don't put any widgets on my lock screens in focus modes. So my evening and weekend, there's no widgets there. But in my default no focus mode, I do have once again, the Fantastical upcoming event widget right under the clock. So it shows like MPU in so many hours. I have my, once again, Food Noms lock screen widget, which shows your calories for the day. And the circle will actually fill in as you log foods throughout the day, which is amazing. And so you can have that right on your lock screen at a glance. And of course, you could tap it to open the Food Noms app. And then I have the weather conditions in a little circle. And I believe that's the carrot weather, but might be stock weather. I'm not sure. And so those are lock screen widgets I have. And above the clock, it's the date and temperature. Or I think that might be current conditions, because it's a little different, but you see the same information most of the time. But what was on your lock screen, by the way, for your regular personal focus?
I've actually put more thought into those lock screens than they have merited, because even though I've set widgets up on them, I almost never use any of them. I don't know. I'm just unlock my phone when I look at it. I don't stop to fiddle around with the stuff there, except for the Disneyland focus mode. I have, and listeners will know, I have a focus mode for Disneyland because we go there often enough. And in that one, I have programmed the lower left button to the Disneyland app, because when you go there, you need the app to get in the front gate and to order food. There's a lot of things you need it for. So it's actually pretty convenient to have it there just on the lock screen. But in general, even though I've spent all this time setting these things up, I barely use them.
What is the magnifying glass on that Disneyland?
That is, when you get in your 50s, you'll know all about that. You can't read books. And so it's a little accessibility feature. If you're in a dark restaurant and you can't read the menu, you hit the magnifying glass and it gives you a higher camera. It's an accessibility feature.
Gotcha. And if listeners and viewers didn't know, you can swap out the flashlight and camera icon on any lock screen to any control center action, which includes third-party apps and even shortcuts.
Yeah, but that's how I'm doing the Disneyland one. I just made a simple launch this app shortcut, and I put it on that button.
Gotcha. Now, in your personal focus mode, like I see the Fantastical one, the temperature with the high and low. Is that the dark noise widget at
No,
the bottom?
that is an app called Whisper Memos, which I absolutely love. It's a artificial intelligence based voice to text generator, and I just tap on it and I talk to it, and then when I hit done, it converts it to text and it puts it in my drafts inbox. So I can be anywhere, think of anything, just say a few words, and then next time I sit at my computer, it's waiting for me.
And you like the lock screen widgets at the bottom, I see.
Yeah, I generally like to make the clocks bigger than usual. And
Yeah. Then you also get the nice depth effect, like with the castle right here.
yeah,
That's kind of cool.
it was a cloudy day, and I
Yeah.
took that picture with the reflection. I thought it came out really nice. It's the Disneyland Castle, but there's a moat around it. I'm holding up air quotes moat. But it's a really nice reflection, but not so bright that it looks nice. You see the colors.
That's fun. And then this one is your podcasting focus mode, which, as you would, a microphone is the
Yeah.
lock screen.
Yeah, as little color as there is on my phone, mainly when I actually unlock it, it does give me an image that reminds me of whatever focus mode I'm in.
That's pretty funny. Now, I talked about my focus mode home screens, but you also have a different home screen for your focus mode. And is this your Disney one, or is this...
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have one for all of my focus modes, but the Disneyland one is special because it's just you have different needs when you're in a theme park. It's like the battery widget is on the screen, and the weather for the next few hours is there, and then the host of apps you need to be a theme park guest are there as well.
Now, I'm curious, your Apple Watch, do you have that changing faces for any focus mode, or do you leave that alone?
Some of them, but I'll tell you, to be honest, lately I've just been really leaning into utility on the Apple Watch. I do not really like any of the faces on the Apple Watch.
Okay.
So, I kind of like the utility face, just keep it simple. My reading vision is just not that good. I need reading glasses to read. So putting a bunch of, complications on it are no good to me. I can't even read them. So, just give me a watch. Let me see what time it is. Still does all the stuff in the background for me. But I'm increasingly going to either, the utility face, which is one of the original faces, but I just think it looks nice and classy, or with, my, or some of the other faces too. I jump through them. I seem to even be exposing myself as a fraud in here. I cannot settle on a home screen or a watch face, but I always want it to be better.
Well, I will say I wanted to mention with wallpaper specifically. A lot of people do photos of like just rotating or shuffling photos on their lock screen and home screen wallpapers, and I never preferred that on my iPhone because, like you, I use my wallpaper as a signal as to like what is it right now? Is it evening, weekend, or default, or filming? But I've wanted to have photos show up somewhere, and so I've actually landed on my Apple Watch doing those photos. And so in the evening and weekend focus modes, I go to a photo shuffle watch face, but I was never crazy about the colors because photos are very different in color. Some of them can be very bright, some of them dark.
Yeah.
And I didn't like that inconsistency every time I looked down at my Apple Watch. And so I finally went to the black and white filter. So you can add a photo shuffling Apple Watch face and make every photo black and white. And now I actually like having the photos on my watch, and you can actually tap and it'll go to the next photo with the time in the upper corner. And I found the black and white actually makes it more enjoyable to me. It's more consistent. I'm not wondering what color my watch is going to be. And, sometimes I'm a little particular and I like having my Apple Watch band actually match the colors on my face. But with black and white photos, it doesn't matter. And so I've actually done that on my watch and like it.
Yeah. And the other advantage is I think it's easier to read the time because if it's the photo's too colorful, the time element can blend in.
Exactly. And the last focus mode I'll talk about, I have a filming focus, which I strictly use for when I have my phone on camera, on screen. And it is using just a regular gradient background. I swap it out for the latest basic Apple Guy one. And I have even less on this home screen because I typically just want to focus on the couple apps I'm talking about. Oftentimes it's shortcuts, maybe it's new features in iOS, And so this is like a very limited home screen. I'll swap out 4 apps. Right now it's Home, Shortcuts, Pushcut, and Instagram. But I'll swap that out for whatever. And then I have a podcast widget, Apple Podcast widget, that will either show Mac Power users or Primary Technology. This way, anytime I'm doing a video, there's a subliminal, hey, this is a podcast you should go listen to.
Oh, clever.
right there on the home screen.
Yeah, I like that.
And then the last one, I don't travel very often, but when I do, I like using the world lock screen, where it'll actually show your current location on like the satellite globe or whatever. And I will put world clocks on the lock screen for current, like whatever your current time zone is, and home. And so I can just on the lock screen see very quickly what time is it at home back in Florida versus where I am now. And I have the Pocket Cast widget there, but usually it'll be like Apple Podcasts or something.
We have talked about Basic Apple Guy a few times, but I'd like to call him out as well. These are the best collection of wallpapers on the internet. Just end of statement. I mean, if you've been going to like these wallpaper aggregation sites, just stop that. Go to Basic Apple Guy. You'll find whatever you like. I think there's some you can pay for. He gives away a ton of them. And if you want nice wallpaper and you like Apple gear, if you listen to Mac Power users, you're going to like Basic Apple Guy.
And he's hilarious too. He'll do like funny Apple Watch workouts where he'll Photoshop what looks like an Apple Watch workout, but it's like shoveling snow or something like that. And his currently he has a February 2026 gradient wallpaper edition. That's what I've been using, and he's releasing a gradient like every other day. And so we'll put links, of course, to that in show notes and food noms and all of that down below.
It's so much better than anything I could ever make, and they're funny, they're good. Yeah. If there's an Apple keynote, he usually puts something together around that too.
He does bingo cards for the Apple events.
Just go through them. You'll find a good one.
Super fun.
One of the funny things I see as a Disneyland patron is people, because you have to get a special code when you get pictures taken. They call it PhotoPass. You know, people will take a picture of the QR code and make that their wallpaper. And then so when they go get their pictures taken, they just open their phone and the guy could scan it. And it offends me to know that you would put a QR code in your wallpaper. Like, what is wrong with you?
I've seen people hack their like Costco or Sam's Club membership UPC symbols on either their lock screen or even like their Apple Watch if it'll actually scan or whatever. So maybe make a shortcut and just have the image pop up.
Yeah.
Don't make it your lock screen.
All right, Stephen, let's talk control centers. We had fun talking about that last week on the Mac. Are you going to tell me you've had the same control center for like 3 years? Is this the theme today?
No, the control center is pretty. This is where I'm a power user, I think. This is my iPhone control center.
Okay.
And I've heavily customized it. I won't go through all the things. I'll leave the image, but I've done so much as like I've removed the default connectivity widget where you have to tap twice almost to get to like Wi-Fi and Bluetooth. Yeah. I've broken all of that out. So I have Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, rotation, lock, and silence in 3 small icons at the top. I still have volume and brightness as sliders. I have my focus mode picker. I have some smart home controls, a couple scenes, and a couple individual devices that I use very often, including my garage door. I have a couple focus mode type things, but then I have a lot of individual actions for third-party apps. So I have add an event in Fantastical as a control center control. I have an AnyList, add an item to AnyList. I have my screen recording, low battery flashlight as you would. I also have the call sheet search icon. So if I want to search call sheet quickly, I just click the magnifying glass. I have my set white point in Control Center because if I'm ever on my phone very late at night, which I know David doesn't do, but sometimes I'll do, I want to drop the brightness even further. I'll just set white point and it drops down. I have my Apple TV remote control, 2 shortcuts, those bottom 2 icons. One is a shortcut that whatever app I'm in, it will jump me to the current storage of that app. So it actually uses a URL scheme to go to the settings app, go to the specific app that's on screen, and show me how much storage that app is taking up. And then the second one, which looks like kind of a circle of circles, that one brings me to the settings for that app. So if I'm in the music app and I want to adjust the EQ, I can run that shortcut while I'm in the music app, and it jumps me to the music settings, deep into the settings app using the URL schemes. And then I have the share shot control, which is I can frame a screenshot if I want to share it on social media, which I do all the time. I can take a screenshot, swipe down, and tap the share shot control, and then it immediately frames it with a nice gradient background. That's my first control center. And then I have the smart home control center, the music, the connectivity, and if you didn't know, you can create multiple control centers on iPhone and iPad. But I've created a second custom control center at the bottom, which has a bunch of shortcuts. And these are all shortcuts that start by hiding the control center and then taking a screenshot. And so like I created a shortcut called Remember This. So whether you're looking at a text message conversation, you're looking at a product on screen in Safari, you can run Remember This. It takes a screenshot, hides control center, takes a screenshot, so the screenshot is of what you're actually looking at, uses Apple Intelligence to parse the information in that screenshot, and then creates a reminder based on that information and attaches the screenshot image to that reminder. So there's a bunch of shortcuts in this control center that are based around screenshots, and running them from the control center I find to be the best because the first action in those shortcuts can be to hide it and then proceed with the actions. That's what I do.
Yes, and that makes sense because the ones you have in your Today view are going to be on the Today view. They're not going to be in the right spot to take the screenshot.
Correct.
And
you
then
can
the
use
action there would be take a screenshot, then feed it to Apple Intelligence. Do you use the local model or
I use the private cloud compute often, unless it has to do with a lot of text, and then I use ChatGPT because the private cloud compute errors out if you give it too much text.
Okay, so your first step, take it. I guess, do you need to add an action to hide the control center?
That's the first part of every shortcut I run from here.
Yeah.
I hide control center and then I wait 1 second because you can add a wait command in shortcuts. Yeah. Because if you don't wait, sometimes you'll still get some control center in the screenshot.
Gotcha. And then you take a screenshot, then you feed the screenshot with, and then you have a built-in prompt based on whichever action you've got here, right?
Correct. And like one of them is called Find Local Food Spots. And this one's really cool. When you run it, let's say someone shared an Instagram story of a restaurant.
Yeah.
And they didn't share the name of the restaurant. It's just a picture of the outside. Or maybe they held up a cup from a coffee place.
Yeah.
Well, when I run this shortcut, it hides control center, takes a screenshot, gets your current location, and then feeds a prompt into Apple Intelligence ChatGPT extension that says, this is an image of a local food or coffee place. Here's my current location. Find any possible businesses that match what you see in this image to my location and send me that location or business name in Apple Maps. And then the final part of the shortcut actually opens it in Apple Maps. And it's surprising how well this works. And so I've done this multiple times where I'm looking at something on Instagram, I'll run this shortcut, and in a few seconds, Apple Maps will open to that business location. And it's pretty wild.
And then, because you get text back from the AI, then you can kind of do anything with it, right? You can go to Maps,
Yes.
You can go to your Task Manager, Apple Notes, whatever.
Yeah, and that's something like I have a screenshot to reminder. And so you can just have it take a screenshot, it'll parse a reminder, add it to reminders. One person asked me, their wife refuses to use like a grocery app to add items, and so their wife just texts them a bunch of items. And he's like, can I parse this into a reminders list? I said, absolutely. So one of those, it'll take a screenshot, look for the items, parse it as individual reminders, and add it to the grocery list reminders app.
Yeah. It's Apple Intelligence, as much as we make fun of it, really gives wings to shortcuts if you use it right.
It is the sleeper hit of iOS 26. And especially when you want to parse things like a website. And one of my most viral Instagram reels was if you see a recipe on Instagram, you can share that to a shortcut, go to the raw HTML of that Instagram Reels page, give that HTML to Apple Intelligence and say, parse the recipe that's in the caption. And it will literally create an Apple Note with the recipe ingredients and steps of that Instagram Reel. And it works surprisingly well, and that is still my most viewed reel to this day.
Do you have a YouTube video on how you set up these screen capture shortcut?
I do. I'll put a link to one of my videos with a couple of these specifically.
Yeah.
And I'll put it in the show notes because I have so many shortcuts videos. I think I'm up to like 65. But
Yeah.
I'll put the one that has several screenshot type shortcuts in it for sure.
Yeah, you should share that because I'm sure people listening would like to build it themselves. And it's not hard. That's the thing. Like we used to, I remember teaching this stuff and telling people to go write a regular expression. And it's like such an ask. And now you just feed it to AI and it does it for you.
And one of the really powerful parts is the Apple Intelligence use model action can take a lot as an input without you converting it to text first.
Yeah.
So you can just give it a screenshot, give it a photo, give it an Apple Note. So you can have a choose from Apple Notes action, choose from list, and then ask Apple Intelligence to do something based on that note. And you don't have to convert the text to get text from input. It'll just take those notes and even multiple notes as input and do whatever you want with it. And that's actually one of the shortcuts I made a while ago. I called it Siri Bot because one of the things about Apple Intelligence is it doesn't have a history of your conversations.
Yeah.
And so I made a shortcut that every time you asked Apple Intelligence something, it would log it into an Apple Note.
Yeah.
And then any time you would go back and ask it something else, it would pull that Apple Notes text as context into your next request. And it didn't work great. It works not as good as like ChatGPT and Claude, who just have the memory built in. But it's a way to kind of hack the system.
Yeah, but that contextual window is the key to making this stuff useful. And
right.
That's why it's frustrating, honestly, that we still don't have the Gemini, brain transplant in Siri. Because just imagine the things we'll be able to do when that happens.
Hopefully soon. But tell me about your control center. You sent me a picture here.
Yeah, okay. So mine is a basic control center with a bunch of modifications. My modifications largely are kind of below the fold. The top stuff I've kept. The networking tools now playing that stuff. The focus mode picker, that's when I was talking earlier about how I do them manually. That's where I usually throw it, is there on my watch. And then I've got, the sound and the flashlight there. But below that, I've got like particular, again, contextual actions that I want to do. The one that stands out for me that I use all the time is Simple Scan, Greg Pierce's scanning app. I scan all my mail as it comes in. I used to use a document scanner and everything. When you're a lawyer, you get a lot more paper. Now I don't have as much. Now I just lay it on a desk. I open Simple Scan. I take a picture of it, and it's on my network in seconds. I've got the remote apps there, the calculator, which comes in handier than you'd think. But
I have it in mine too, yeah.
Yeah. The Shazam one, my melodies. I talked about hearing. I have my hearing aid app there.
Is that the bottom right one is next to the recording?
Yeah,
next to the screen recording one? Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's actually the ear, the top right corner.
Oh,
there.
okay.
Yeah. I've got a couple for OmniFocus, my task manager, where I can add and access specific places. Quick capture to an Apple Note is really useful. I've got that magnifying glass one I talked about earlier. When I want to switch between dark and light mode, I've been pretty intentional about the buttons that get here, and I occasionally audit it and take a few out and put a few in. Something they've done really well over the years is made it so you can put almost anything in there.
Yeah.
And you're just one swipe down away from it. So you start thinking about it.
What's the bottom row? Can you go through that bottom row real quick?
Yeah, sure. The left one is new inbox item in OmniFocus. The next one over is open a specific perspective in OmniFocus. My bench perspective to me in all my platforms is the stuff that I'm actually working on right now. And then I've got the one to record the screen. That's something I do all the time. And then the other one is a whisper flow. It's another way to whisper flow.
Okay. All right. Well, this was we've mentioned it here. I've mentioned how I have things and reminders on my home screen. I hear you have OmniFocus. When you put in a task, where do you put it?
OmniFocus inbox.
That's just default, no other place.
Yeah, it's just the idea is to have as few of those as possible. But I also capture a lot to drafts, and I process the drafts inbox daily. And frankly, I'm doing a lot of experiments with Cowork and Obsidian right now, which could change that formula for me in the future. I'm not sure yet.
Right. Well, I just want to mention, as you have OmniFocus as your task thing, I dual task manage it.
Yeah.
And I have things and reminders. And I have a weird separation, but it works for me, where things is like my work type items,
Yeah.
except for videos. And so for MPU, or if I'm trying to do a newsletter or a sponsor thing, I will put that in things. And then in reminders, I have both my personal tasks, like take out the trash, change the water softener salt, and I have a Kanban view of all my upcoming video projects. And I had that in Notion for a long time, and Notion was great for that. But reminders feels faster, like faster to just get there
Yeah.
and add something to a list. And so I've been liking it. I wish I could, in reminders, add more text that's formatted nicely, because like reminders notes aren't very robust. You basically just have like some plain text and it doesn't collapse and you can't expand it. But it's been working for me to keep my video Kanban board in reminders, and so I dual task it for some reason.
I do that to an extent. I have some personal stuff over in reminders, partly because I just want to keep my head in the game with reminders, because a lot of the people in the Mac Sparky Labs love it, and I want to make sure I'm using it. I also have all our shared lists in there, all the family shared lists. We don't use grocery apps, anything. Everything is reminders, and we've got shared lists for any store you can think of. And we actively use that. So I use reminders as well to an extent. But really, for me, the working space is OmniFocus with that asterisk of Claude Cowork is really changing the way I think about a lot of things right now. So
yeah,
interesting times.
You led me down the rabbit hole of Claude Cowork, and I did a whole video on it this past weekend because I was too excited about it.
Yeah.
But it's just scratching the surface. Now, when it comes to notes, you have several notes apps, because I heard you mention Apple Notes, and obviously we use Notion for this show and Apple Notes.
Yeah.
So what is your notes strategy?
So I'm going to say Obsidian primarily, because historically it was my main notes database. I have a lot of things I write down. I call it Sparky OS, but I actually write down kind of my thoughts on anything that is important, and I feel like by codifying it, it becomes real. So I've written essays. I also write them by hand. I have at least essays I've written. The combined total of it to me is my operating system. And I've always kept that in Obsidian. But then I kept a lot of stuff in notes. But lately, I'm leaning Obsidian because of Claude Cowork. So this is a little bit in transition for me. But same thing, I need Apple Notes because I have a bunch of shared notes. Apple Notes is really good in some ways that no other app is good, like embedding images and media and like my woodworking projects. I'll take screenshots of inspirational pieces. That's not going in Obsidian, but it goes great in Apple Notes. So it's a bit of a combination. Notion for me is truly a status board app. I don't like web apps in general. Notion has a local app, and there's a lot to like about it. I get it. People run their whole lives out of it. But that's not me. But when I work with other people, there's nothing better. This outline we're doing the show on is in Notion, because there's really no better way to do it. And we can track future shows. You and I have a great way to keep track of what's going on. Same thing with my team for the Mac Sparky stuff. I know exactly where a video or a blog post or a newsletter is in the process. So it's very good for that. But I work, quote unquote, as little as possible in Notion.
Okay. I'm on a multiple system. Basically, Notion is for podcasts. Here, MPU, Primary Tech, we have both of that in Notion. Bear is my personal everything. I put everything in Bear.
Yeah.
And then Apple Notes is for collaborative notes, which we have a few for MPU. I have some with my family for different things. And so they're easy. And maybe I'll add Obsidian because of Claude Cowork. We'll see.
Yeah, I'll tell you. We're going to do a show on that in the future, gang. We're already scheduling it. I'm doing a bunch of research. We have stuff to share here, but I want to kind of get it nailed down before we bring it to you.
For sure. And before I forget, action button. What does your action button do?
Oh, I'm glad you asked. My action button is another contextual shortcut. But for me, it is, I call it the capture button. And it's a choose from menu shortcut. And if I need to make a new draft, I need to add something OmniFocus. If I want to save a personal day one entry or a Mac Sparky day one entry, all this stuff where I capture something fits under that button. I had tried turning my home screen into like a capture screen, but I didn't find that as useful. I find that the action button as capture is perfect. Whisper memos, I can record a voice memo into the Apple Voice Memos app, which also transcribes pretty well for free. So I've just got a bunch of stuff in there that it launches on a choose from menu shortcut. And that is, I started playing with that about 6 months ago, and that one is going to stick. I can tell you, it has been really great.
That's pretty good. And the action button is another place where you could have either shortcuts run or, like you're saying, like capture type ideas, because it will be, you can do whatever's on screen after you tap whatever's in the action button. For me, I have it running a shortcuts folder. And so with a shortcuts folder, you can have up to 8 items. Yeah. You can do a choose from menu and have way more. And so if you just want a plethora of options, you could do that. I just like how a shortcuts folder looks from the action button. Yeah. Just because, nice little round icons and stuff. But I can open my garage from there. So I can open or close it using a toggle action. I can wake an Apple TV and open the Apple TV remote app on my iPhone. So it shows a choose from menu. I choose what room I'm in, and it'll do that. I have a couple EV car controls. And then I also have a seek action for Apple Podcasts where it skips forward 3 minutes. And if you use Pocket Casts or Overcast, you're like, why do you have a special button for that? With third-party podcast apps, you can program the skip forward to be way longer than Apple Podcasts. I think Apple Podcasts, the most you can skip forward is 60 seconds at a time, which is really unfortunate. So it's basically, I have a shortcut that all it does is skip forward the current media 3 minutes. Yeah. And so that runs that action. And I listen to some podcasts that have some very long ads. And so that just, gets through them a little further.
Yeah. The folder trick is nice because it does look more presentable. Another way I used to use the action button, last time this came up on the show, was I would have focus mode based contextual choose from menus. So the first thing we do is check what focus mode you're in, and then we give you different options based on what focus mode you're in. So like if I was in Max Sparky focus mode, I could turn off the studio lights or do the stuff I need to do in the studio. But I just found I wasn't using that enough to justify it. And switching it to a capture button became more useful to me, and I find I'm pressing it now every day a few times where I wasn't doing it as much before.
And I've played around with 3 different methods. One, you can have the action button do something different in the current app. So you can have a shortcut check the current app on screen and then take action differently on that. You can do it per focus mode. You can even go so far and use like the Toolbox Pro and actions, shortcuts actions for based on orientation. So when your iPhone is upside down, your action button does one thing. If it's in landscape, it does another thing. And I found like the cognitive load of trying to think about what is it going to do right now was too much.
Yeah, it weighs on you a bit. It's like, I know I'm in personal mode. What is going to happen if I push this button?
And if you have to think about that even a couple of times, you're like, it's just not as useful, because then you don't want to use it because you're like, I don't know what it's going to do right now. I'm not sure. So I found having the just folder or a menu, and that's the best way, because I think the action button is meant to be able to do things quickly. You shouldn't have to think about what you're choosing to do or, what trigger you're going to use because you're in a different app.
Yeah, I tell people the choose from menu is like the most underrated action in shortcuts, because you don't have to know anything about shortcuts, and you can run that and just put like launch an app or open a website, and it's so useful. Like one of the ones in my center, my personal choose from menu context mode, I'll get back to Disneyland, is the reservation site, because to make a reservation you have to open the app, navigate to a menu, then you push a button, and then it kicks you to the web. It's just the dumbest implementation I've ever seen. So I just captured that website they kick you out to and did it as an open URL action. And it's just a button under that center button. And I'm just there so fast.
That's it.
But, there's all kinds of little tricks you can come up with. And it all comes out of a choose from menu. It looks pretty. And you feel like you're a programmer. You just designed a personal app. And it's just so easy.
Absolutely. Or maybe some lightning round customization questions.
Okay.
Along with the action button, do you have the back tap accessibility setting programmed to anything?
I do, and I never use it.
That's exactly.
That's been Yeah, I did it for the thing where it increases the camera, like I was talking about for menus.
Right.
And now all I do is occasionally trigger it unexpectedly, and I'm like, what's going on?
And this is not something I should admit, I guess, but sometimes I will do something on my phone in the car, like when I'm stopped maybe or driving very, very slowly. But I find that sometimes back taps get triggered inadvertently
Yeah.
in that scenario. So I turn them all off.
Yeah.
I don't have it on. And I feel like the control center, now that you can customize that, I'd rather have a visual cue of what I'm about to do than a back tap, which I just don't know what it's programmed to right now.
So now I got to add another thing to your personal project, Steven.
I drive here in the backwoods. I'm out here in the country. I might hit a cow. That's the only thing.
Okay.
That's the only thing. Do you do
I'm
any
worried
kind
about
of?
you. I just got a new host. You need you to drive.
No,
off the
I'm not
bridge.
going anywhere. Not going anywhere.
Yeah,
Do you do any kind of battery management on your iPhone? Some people love stopping their charging at 80% or whatever. Do you do anything like that?
I do none of that.
Same.
I the only thing that in my life relates to batteries is I fret over my kids because every time I pick up one of their phones, it's at 5%. I think that's like their goal is to keep it at 5% all day.
Do they not charge overnight?
Maybe, but not when I'm around. I don't know. I don't get it. But with me, I got a charger on my desk. I got a charger next to the bed. Something weird I do is I usually put the phone in a drawer. I drilled a hole in my nightstand and ran a cable into it. So when I go to bed, I just plug it in and throw it in a drawer, and I don't think about it.
So you're not a MagSafe charger at night?
No, I used to, but I didn't like that it would light the room up every time I turned over. So I kind of like the idea of like, okay, it's in a drawer. It's done. It's served its purpose. I would frankly leave it in my studio, except for there's enough people around me. I always worry about somebody, having something happen in the middle of the night and people trying to get a hold of me.
Yeah. Do you, now that you mentioned the nightstand, that is a standby mode also on iPhone where you place it on a charger in landscape. Do you ever use that?
All the time on my desk in the studio.
Oh, you do? Okay. And what do you have on there?
I've got the date and the clock once more.
You have the date in 30 places.
Yeah, I do. I need to know what day it is.
If you ever need to know the date, ask David Sparks.
Yeah,
he has no chance he doesn't know.
It's the 24th right now.
Thank you.
I have 3 independent means of verification in front of me.
I don't know why it's so funny to me. It's like the date is not getting past David Sparks. It is not escaping.
What do you put on yours?
Nothing. I never use it.
Yeah.
I never use it. I don't have a MagSafe charger on my desk. And at night, like you said, I don't want my screen lighting up for any reason. And you can set the standby mode to like only activate on motion. Yeah. But I find even then it will light up inadvertently. And so I don't use that at all. I don't like it. Yeah. But then like storage, how big is your iPhone? I don't know if I know.
512.
Do you ever think about storage? You do anything storage?
I don't think about it. It's more than I need. I think I use like half of it.
Yeah.
How about you though? Because you shoot a lot of video. Do you need the big boy?
I get a 1 terabyte, which I think you can get up to 2 terabytes now. But I didn't do that because I feel like if you have to go 2 terabytes on your iPhone, like something bad happened.
Well, if you're like doing professional video and you're shooting in RAW, then you probably need it.
That's true, and I don't leave those big video files on my iPhone if I ever do it, and I don't record my hour-long A-roll on my iPhone. That I'll still do on like my Osmo. But I have the 1 terabyte, and I'm using 360 right now. So I could probably get away with the 512, but I want the headroom.
Do you download all your photos?
Not on my iPhone. Well, wait, I thought you were joking about last week's photo backup.
No, I'm serious. If you got a phone that big, I think you could probably just have it put all your photos on locally.
My iCloud photo library is like over 1 terabyte.
Oh, really? Wow.
So it wouldn't do it on my iPhone. Yeah.
Wow.
So I have it saved on my Mac Studio and on a NAS. Casey List texted me after last episode. He
put it in one place and pray a lot. I know your theory.
Casey List told me he has it in 8 places, including a remote Synology at his parents' house. He has it in like a Fort Knox bunker.
Yeah, you don't need to go the full list, but you should have a couple backups. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
in your existing network-attached storage.
I know. I have
the
high hardware.
Bandwidth connection.
The hardware is right there. You don't use a case, do you? That's the last.
No, generally I don't. I own a case. I always buy one, but I don't generally put it in. I guess if I'm going somewhere very active, I might put it on. It's probably been 2 or 3 months since I've had it in a case.
So I also go no case. I used to be case all the time, but now I'm no case with, this is the Moft MagSafe wallet and stand. And because the Pro Max just starts feeling really big, I use this as like a little grip, which is cool. And then I keep my cards in there, and it also has Find My built in, so you can ping it.
Because with the Moff stand, when you open it up, you can actually, it's enclosed. You can stick your fingers in there and use it kind of as a bit of a grip. Although it's not attached very securely, so I'd imagine you still got your hands on the phone.
This one is actually more secure. This is like the latest model, and it's pretty sturdy.
Yeah.
But yeah. And
Moft makes good stuff. I really like their iPhone accessories. I've got a couple of their things.
I like their stuff too. I actually met them at CES. They had a booth there. And their dynamic iPad folio case is super nice. That's pretty cool. But that's our iPhones. That's a lot of iPhone stuff.
Yeah.
That was fun.
It is.
Well, if you want to hear more on more power users, remember, we're going to talk about the M5, and I'm going to try and convince David to upgrade his Mac Studio. We'll see if I'm successful coming a couple weeks from now.
I feel like it's not a very heavy lift, to be honest.
You'll see the length and minutes of the more power user segment. You'll know how quickly I did it. But you can go to relay.fm/MPU for feedback and a membership. Of course, love to see you in the forums, commenting on YouTube. Links to that are down in the show notes as well. Thank you to our sponsors, Ecamm, 1Password, and SaneBox. And we'll catch you next week.